Welcome to this episode of Same Mom, Different Dads, a show where we talk about pretty much everything and anything and all the things and none of the things. I'm waking up. Actually, it's nighttime and I'm waking up because I put my son to bed and I fell asleep. So that's what's going on. Joe, how you doing?
I am great. I'm fully awake.
Good. That makes one of us. I'm trying to wake up and I'm drinking wine. So that's yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. God, you gotta get a nice shot of whiskey. You want to wake up? Like,
I know.
shake it off.
So what are we talking about today?
You know what, man? Real quick, I know we've had a couple episodes where we really haven't got into politics, but I was driving this morning to go to an ear doctor appointment, and I heard on the radio that President Biden signed an executive order that says that transgender women, meaning a boy that went to a woman, can compete in high school women's sports. That's how they explained it on the radio station. And I didn't really look into it because I've been going all day, so I didn't really sit down and research it. But I heard that somewhere. I think I saw that online too, somewhere. And I was like, an executive order?
Yeah, it's kind of extreme.
Shouldn't that really be up to like the athletic commission in that state, in that area? And also, shouldn't people get to vote on that? Because I bet a lot of biological women are going to have a problem with this.
Yes.
Like, I wasn't a big kid in school. I was I walked around about 155 in high school at most.
Yeah.
And if I would have competed against any of those women, say in wrestling, because women do wrestle guys in high school wrestling, that it's rare, but I've seen a couple of women in the men's division wrestle because they don't have like a women's only division, but it doesn't fare well for the women.
No. In fact,
if you had an all women's league and I went and wrestled in this all women league because I'm saying I
identify
as a woman, and I go whoop all their asses, that gives that like maybe takes away a potential scholarship opportunity for one of those girls.
Yeah, it's an extremely unfair advantage because you're a man. I don't care if you identify as like a woman, you're a man. Like biologically, physically, your muscular structure, your physical abilities, you're a man. It's an extreme disadvantage. Yeah, I've heard of, like a woman who was in a martial arts contest. I think it was an Olympic contest, and fought a transgender woman who was a man. And she said, and the guy whooped her, right? Just dominated. And she said she felt completely overwhelmed because she couldn't handle it, right?
Did she know that she was fighting a man?
Yes.
Wow. Because there was a thing, I forget the lady's name, but it was a transgender woman fighting MMA. And I don't think that the women that were fighting her knew she was previously a man. Now, I guess she had the operation to go all the way through to becoming a woman. But it's like, dude, that bone density and that structure that a man has, it's far different than a woman. That doesn't change.
No, it doesn't. No, that's what I'm saying. Your brain chemistry doesn't change.
The testosterone levels.
Right. Yeah.
It's not fair. You know what though? There was a woman, kickboxer. She's in MMA now, but when she was I think it was in a Muay Thai bout. Maybe it was just kickboxing, but she fought a man. Like she signed up to fight a man, and she whooped dude. She knocked him out.
I'm sure.
So there are some exceptions to the rules, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, 99% of dudes have no business competing against a woman. There's differences, man. It really, when I hear this, I'm like, look, when they're adults and all that, if they want to fight each other, whatever, or they want to compete against each other, whatever. But in high school sports, it's for the president of the United States to sign an executive order.
Yeah.
To let that go on in high school, where these kids, a lot of time, most of them, until they become seniors, most cases, are not even legal to vote. So they have no say. And it's really crazy. Like, yeah, you'll let a kid get a gender reassignment surgery before they're 18, but you won't let them vote. And then you'll like sign an executive. I wonder, is that true?
I'm looking it up right now.
Because I'm like, I don't want to just be talking.
I know he signed an executive order reversing Trump's executive order, which was a reversal to Obama's executive order. So we're just playing executive order chess right now, which is ridiculous. Reverses the Trump administration's ban on transgender Americans joining the military.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
Okay.
Listen, I'm not against that. And I'm military. Like, I'm just saying, like, know that whatever job you go to do, make sure you can actually do the job, and you're not going to be you're going to be beneficial to the team that you join, and you're not going to hold anybody back. You're not going to get anybody killed in a hairy situation in a war zone or anything like that. So just like, I don't care that you identify as a woman or you used to be a woman, now you're a man or whatever. Just make sure that when you go and sign up for a job, you're being realistic with your expectations of yourself and what you are capable of doing or capable of becoming able to do. Like, you know what you can do. Like, and having the firemen carry a 250-pound man, if you're 140 or 50-pound woman, is going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult.
Most of these are COVID-19 related.
Well, that's what I heard on the local radio station this morning. I mean, I wouldn't say that they would be just spewing false information, but you never know these days. Maybe they heard it and didn't really read into it, but that's what I heard. And I was like, if that's true, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, he reversed Trump's removal of the United States from the World Health Organization, and now the United States is back in. This is like all COVID-19 related.
He's pretty much probably going to just, anything Trump did, whether it's good or bad, he's just going to reverse it.
Yeah, well, that's what they do in politics, right? I
mean, yeah.
I've heard some horror stories from people who have worked in Washington who said that, it doesn't, there's such a strong like party affiliation and like party support, whether it's Republican or Democrat, that you'll vote no or yes depending on what your party wants. Whether or not you agree with the bill or the proposal, you'll just vote however your party's voting, and that's it. And that's the end of the discussion. And that these parties, like the Democrats and the Republicans, will demonize a bill that's presented by the Democrats, and then a few years later, when it didn't pass, a few years later, however many years later, the Republicans will get their hands on the same bill, and then they'll present the same bill. And then the Democrats will say, no, it's a terrible idea. This is a terrible thing that you're doing. Like, we should not pass this bill. And the only reason they're doing that is because it's just opposition. It's just pure opposition. It's like sports teams, like your team sucks, our team is awesome. And they're just stealing each other's bills. And they're just voting against them simply because they're the other team's, like they're the other party's bill, and that's it. And there's no rhyme or reason to any of it.
Yeah, which cracks me up whenever I hear any of them say, we really need to, this is a bipartisan issue. We really need to be bipartisan about this. And I'm like, y'all know that you all are scheming and trying to get over on each other to get to the top position. And that because you're Democrat and they're Republican, there is a very select few of them that are actually really willing to work together and not blame the other person.
Right.
And that's just politics from what I understand. Politics and what I see is just like, they're not on our team, like you said. So
exactly.
we have the winning team. They're wrong and they don't know what they're doing and they are crazy.
And except, yeah, go ahead.
I will say though, the craziest things I've seen in the last 5-6 years have been from the Democratic Party. Some of the craziest
it's insane.
things. And like now they're like telling Trump supporters like get over it, accept that he lost and blah blah. And you heard that a lot right after, election day and before anything was really even decided, which I think we all kind of knew which direction it was going. But it's funny to hear them say all this stuff that they was doing when Trump won and Hillary lost, calling him an illegitimate president for 4 years.
Yeah.
3 years of Russia collusion investigations, Ukraine investigation with them. And it's like, they found nothing that they wanted to, and now they're still trying to impeach the guy. Which I believe what he did was kind of called everybody to come out to the Capitol, all the crazy ones, right, that showed up. And he wasn't there to back them up. So I thought that was real sneaky on his part. If you're the commander in chief, and you say you have all these people supporting you, like your army, then you want things done and you want this fixed and you're inciting that in a way. You should be there when they show up and you should be like, if you don't want violence, you should be telling them not to be violent. Just chant real loud or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
He did,
but he
actually.
Did.
So Trump actually never told anybody to storm the Capitol or to incite violence or anything. Those words never came out of his mouth. But because when I heard, there's a lot of speculation and there are a lot of assumptions. And now all the news media outlets, I think even Fox News is guilty of this, said that Trump incited violence. That was the headline everywhere, right? Trump incited violence. Oh, yeah. So I did some digging and I could not find a single direct line from his mouth that incited any sort of violence at all. It's the media putting an assumption into people's minds because they already assume the guy's a dirtbag. And so when people just read, all people do is they read the headline, Trump incites violence. They're like, oh yeah, totally, I believe it. But there's no actual evidence of any kind that he told them directly or indirectly, go storm the Capitol, go incite violence, whatever. Right. What he did say was walk Pennsylvania Avenue, and we have to be strong and not let this, basically, it was like we need to show strength. And that was it. He didn't say go storm the Capitol. In fact, it was the police officers at the Capitol that let the rioters in.
There's a lot of screwiness with And
so, but you have the media jumping on it, and they'll say it over and over and over again until people believe it, but there's no evidence that he did. In fact, one of the posts right before Twitter just took Trump off of Twitter, period, like flat out, what they removed was a video that Trump posted to Twitter telling the rioters, you must go home, we have to have peace. And they took that down. Now,
Weird.
nobody... Yeah, exactly. You must, because
why would you take that down?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they don't like Trump. They don't. The media has never, even the conservative media, for some reason. I think it's because Trump was such a wild card that nobody liked him because he was so unpredictable, and he couldn't be controlled, and that's why people didn't like him. So the right and the left media have just been implying that he's this terrible person. They've been painting him in a terrible light. They've been pointing out all of his flaws and none of his accomplishments over the past 5 years, honestly, since he started running for the presidency. I think Fox News is more on his side earlier on, like when he closed down the borders at the beginning of the pandemic, and everyone told him that was like a heartless thing to do, and then what was it that happened exactly? So
Well,
he closed down the border. He closed down the borders. They told him it was a heartless thing to do. You're a terrible president. And then, you know, turned out it was the right decision, but they just couldn't accept that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's when that happened, I went and looked back at that, and there was not a single, I don't think there was a single case reported in this country when Trump did the ban, or maybe there was like one or two. Because I was looking up like when I left for Seattle and before everything started shut, because March Madness, like the college basketball tournament, they declared that shut down, I think, when we were at the airport waiting to get on our plane, or maybe when we was on our way back. But it was like not really serious. I think there was 50 cases in the whole country, and I don't think there was any deaths by then, because we left on like the 14th of March or 15th. And when Trump did the travel ban, I don't believe there was a single case, or maybe one or two. There wasn't even 10 cases. And they were saying he should have done it sooner, while once he did the travel ban, and he was calling it the China virus, Nancy Pelosi's in Chinatown parading like nothing's the matter, which was weird. I'm like, she's doing that. And I had a discussion with this lady once. It was like, well, Trump incites this, incites that. And I'm like, well, listen, if you want to say that Trump's inciting things, which maybe he is to some degree on some things, but I'd say most of the things that people are saying he's inciting, it's made up, it's flipped around to make him look like a bad guy. But
it's a lot of assumptions. Yeah.
Yeah. I said, if you can say so confident that he incites violence, which with the things that he says, which is really like, they call it dog whistling. I'm like, listen, man, come on. So if you could say
that's a good term. Yeah. You can't hear it, but it's there.
But it's there. I promise you. But if you can say that with confidence about Trump, then you should be able to admit that when he did the travel ban from China, that when Nancy Pelosi went to Chinatown with no mask, no protection, nothing, parading in the streets with all these people, that's not giving a bad message to people, letting them know that Trump's a crazy person. Everything's going to be just fine. There's nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
And she was like, no. I'm like, she's like, that's crazy. I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy to say that. I have to disagree.
Yeah.
I don't think that's crazy to say that. I think that's absolutely appropriate. And if you want to do it for him, hey, see, if what's good for one should be good for the other. If they're both held to the highest standards in government, she's the Speaker of the House. She's in second command of the president, really. Right. I mean, vice president, but like, she's right there. So if you're going to hold him to the highest standards, then you better hold her to the higher standard.
Yes. Well, it's very possible. Go ahead.
I was say, if they say there's possible pandemic and there's a virus that might be got loose, or whatever happened in China, then you should not be parading in the streets with anybody. You should be like, look, we're not going to freak out, but we're going to start looking into taking proper precautions just to make sure we get ahead of this. Not parading the streets saying Trump's a xenophobic racist and he hates like Asian people and Chinese. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? So to say that he's dog whistling, well, what is that? You can't say that's good. And that was the right thing for her to do.
No.
And Biden said it was too early and blah, blah. And then he comes out in March, like, we should have done it sooner. I'm like, nobody is researching even back to the beginning of the year when all this started.
No.
And nobody looks at, how many times has Biden been in trouble for plagiarism? I mean, he's dropped out in the presidential race in '88 because he was plagiarizing one of Kennedy's speeches. And the dude there's a confirmation video of him touching little girls on stage and sniffing their hair and just being a creep. Like, I'm sorry, but a creep does that shit.
Yes.
And everybody tends to just forget, like, if we elect them, as long as it isn't Trump, that's the fix. It just can't be Trump, and it's good. And that is going to get us in trouble thinking that way.
Yep.
I totally disagree.
I agree with you completely. I think people have been out for him since day one, since he announced he was running for president, only because he's Trump. And that's it. That was the only reason. We just don't like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was the grab it by the pussy comment, I think is what did it, though.
I don't remember that.
When he was on a bus, coach, with, I forget his name. Well-known guy, and they were talking. It was like gym room, locker room talk, or whatever you want to call it. But it was, it was like, I wouldn't say something like that, but he was like, yeah, I just walk up to, a girl, woman, I'll just walk up to him. And he said something. He's like, I just grabbed by the pussy. And he's like, of course they'd like it, and blah, blah. And when that happened, like, people were making shirts and pussy grabs back. Oh yeah, dude.
No.
I think that was what made everybody go, you know what? We found our bad guy. That's it. I don't think that's like the craziest thing for someone to say, which I wouldn't say it, but
no,
whatever. It's not the craziest thing someone could say. And I don't think it makes him a bad person per se, but that's what did it for him. I think that was when like they were like, right. Like, we got him, dude. Like, this is the prick we thought he was. He's done. He'll never be president.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never say
there's
never.
Actually, there's a scene in Battlestar Galactica where one of the characters is on trial, and another one of the characters who was actually defending him basically went on this like rant about how unfair the whole trial even was. And the more I like think about it, it's very applicable to Trump, his impeachment, his presidency, and all of it. Come to think of it, this character actually ended up being president of the colonies and everything too. So anyway, it's really fascinating because he basically like goes through this list. He's on the stand and he says like, and this guy did this, forgiven. This guy did this, forgiven. You guys did this, forgiven. Like, we're in tough times. All these bad things happen. You guys were forgiven for every bad thing you've done. But he's on trial because why? Well, we don't like him very much. And I'll have to send it to you. It's exactly what's happening. Absolutely. It's like, why are we persecuting you or prosecuting you? Because, well, we just don't like you and you're an easy target. So, but we're not going to point the finger at ourselves, right?
Yeah, right.
As Americans, as Americans, as politicians, none of that. No. Trump is the racist. Trump is the bigot. Trump is, it's just, but that's the society we live in right now, right? Where we're so quick to point out other people's flaws, especially in politics. We just attack and attack and attack and attack. Like the whole, people demanding people get fired from TV shows because they're conservative or because they say things. Like, do you want to take a minute in front of the mirror and like look at your flaws and the things that are wrong with you? Should you get fired because you're a liberal? Should you get fired because you made a mistake or you did something wrong? No. Like, we're just so quick to point the finger. We're so slow to point the finger at ourselves and realize like, hey, that's an imperfect person. I'm an imperfect person. Let's work something out, right? Yeah. And so,
I mean, how many times that guy say, I am not with KKK, like, I am against it, like, I disavow it, like, all this stuff. And every time he gets interviewed, to the very day that he was leaving, he gets asked about, do you disavow the KKK? Do you disavow David Duke?
Yeah.
And it's just like, dude,
he's tired of it. Yeah. Oh. So and what I find amazing is that when he refuses, because I've actually heard people say, and I think it was even during the presidential debate, they said like, can you say this? Like, they basically fed him a line. Will you say X, Y, and Z? Disavowing or like condemning racism and things like that.
Right.
And what I find amazing is that he won't say it, right? He won't say the line. He won't say anything. And people take that as like, well, he was obviously in support of it, obviously. because he won't say it. has it ever crossed your mind that he just doesn't want to be told what to say?
Yeah. I mean,
and maybe he's just fed up with it, right?
Yeah. I think that's what it is. After a few years, he was just like, dude, I'm like, how many different ways can you say the same thing before people go, okay, that's what he said. Nah, I still call him a racist. And now the big thing is all Trump supporters they're saying they're KKK members, which I think is such, when people broadly
You're really reaching. Yeah.
Like, why are you putting a broad generalization on a group of people that, like, there's some really awesome people that are good people that would give you the shirt off their backs that voted for Trump both times. Like, to say that because you voted for Trump when he countless times said, I disavow the KKK, all this stuff, to say that all his supporters are KKK members, it's like, dude, you think the KKK has 80 or 70 plus million members? They'd be bigger than the military, dude. Are you kidding me? Like, that's clearly
it's insanity.
Stupid thing to say.
Yeah, it's like it's like saying, like, well, you bought a Starbucks, so you obviously must hate small business. You must hate small coffee, you know, or you went to Walmart because it was convenient. You obviously, again, you hate small business, you hate your community. It's like, no, I went to Walmart because it was on the way home and they have cheap steak, right? Like, you know, but we keep reading more into it. And yes, ultimately, if you don't want Amazon, the only reason, I'm going to jump topics for this real fast, just talking about misrepresentation, is this hatred people have toward big business, right? Can big business and does big business overreach? Sure, but not all of them do. Is big tech too big? Yes, absolutely. But if you really hate big tech, sign out of your Google account, get rid of your smartphone, stop using the internet. And until you do that, they're going to continue to have the power and the control that they have. Until you are willing to not use your iPhone, and until you're willing to give up Twitter, like, oh, Twitter's overreaching, Twitter's evil, don't use Twitter. Like, that's the only way that they're going to fail, is if people stop using their service. Like, we don't need that. Do you remember there was a day not too long ago where Twitter didn't exist? Facebook didn't exist. Google didn't exist, and we were fine.
We had MySpace.
But even before that, you know, like, we grew up. But again, I
like the internet, though, and I like all these things. I think the thing that's crazy is when they start the censorship of people is really a slippery slope. Like, they're banning Trump for life and this and that. It's like, look, eventually, when does that stop? And who's the one making the ultimate decisions on all these matters to say, take away that person's freedom of speech because you're saying it's bad, but this person might be like, listen, I don't think it's that bad. I'd like to hear that.
Yes.
So who's the one making the decisions?
Exactly. Well, that's the thing, is that these companies are making decisions for the public. They're not letting the public make decisions or come to conclusions on their own. A lot of it started with YouTube and, like, the misinformation and conspiracy theory videos that they started squelching because they didn't want misinformation out there. Now, the thing is, if someone wants to click on a video about flat Earth, let them click on a video about flat Earth. If they come to the conclusion that the Earth is flat, that's their problem, right?
That is their problem. Yeah. Like, dude, go for it. Hey, tell me all about it.
Like,
I don't mind hearing some dumb shit sometimes.
Sides. Yeah. And let people hear all sides of the argument, let people hear all opinions, and let the people come to their own conclusions. But they're so afraid that people will come to a conclusion that is in opposition to big tech's conclusion, generally the liberal conclusion, that they are willing to completely censor any other viewpoint that does not line up with them. In most cases, in a lot of cases, there are videos on YouTube that I'm surprised there's some YouTubers like JP, like Awaken with JP. I am totally blown away that guy has not been removed from YouTube yet. Because
I'm glad he hasn't, though.
Oh, me too. But yeah, people need to come to their own conclusions, and but again, you also have to defend big tech and big business, because you also have to recognize that Twitter is a company, and as an independent entity, as a company, they can do what they want, right? If they want to remove somebody from their product or from their platform, they have the right to do that. There's nothing in the Constitution that says they have to leave it up, but they cannot claim that they are a free and open platform that supports all viewpoints. You can't claim that. You can't claim that if you're going to take people off.
Correct.
So it's a catch-22, right? If YouTube wants to remove Trump like they did, they have the right to do that. They're a company. They can control their product the way they want to control it. But again, they cannot claim to be an open and free platform.
Correct. And the thing is, though, is like, it's just, what the scary thing is when you got like Facebook and Twitter, who is obviously, like, right before the election, the Biden laptop thing, they got dismissed as Russian disinformation. I'm like, you got to be shitting me.
Oh, yeah.
That.
All right. But if it was Trump, they wouldn't have written that thing for years.
Dude, he's still a racist, even though he says he's not a racist 100 million times. So, yeah. So,
are you a racist? No. That is such a racist thing to say.
You white privileged son of a bitch. You are so racist. You're the leader of the KKK, ain't you?
Hey, only racists say they're not racist. Come on.
Listen, crazy people don't know they're crazy. You know what I mean? Maybe racist people don't know they're racist, dude. No, I'm not racist. He doesn't know. He really is. He doesn't know. He just doesn't know.
But you're kidding, but that is the attitude,
dude. I'm telling you,
it is.
Man.
Yeah.
So, like, when Twitter and Facebook gets involved in obviously censoring the laptop story and all that, which is a big deal. Okay. Yeah. And yes, we should you're innocent until proven guilty, unless you're Trump.
Well, in that case, you're guilty until proven guilty. Yeah.
Unless there's a lot of other people that have been put in jail and been innocent. But with Trump and politics, with him, it's like guilty till we prove him innocent. With everybody else that's on the left, it's like you're innocent till proven guilty, which is the way it should be. It's supposed to be in this country. Yep. And when Twitter and Facebook start censoring information that is valid to changing people's minds about the election, who they're going to vote for, well, you're tampering with in a sense, it's a stretch, but you're like tampering with the election in a way, and you're not letting the information flow as it should, and let people make up their own minds. So in that part, like, the government, there's got to be some kind of law created that keeps them from doing that. Like, I think that's just dangerous for a company like them. Like you're saying, they do have the right to do what they want as their own entity, but like, you made the internet, you're using the internet, which is free to everybody. And then you get these platforms, which is free for people to use. And you saying we're open, free platform, but like, you're censoring valid information that would help people change their mind on who they want to vote for. So
that's exactly what it is. You're swaying. You're swaying an entire election. But that's what the news and the media has been doing for decades.
True.
They're just joining the party, right?
Yeah.
And now I think what we're going to have, because you have a lot of conservatives moving over to alternative platforms like MeWe, Signal, and other like messaging apps and social media apps. What we're going to have, and this is terrifying to me actually, is we're going to have conservatives using these apps and liberals using these apps. And what we're going to have is an even greater divide between voices. You're going to have two sides. That's the first problem. You shouldn't have just two sides. And we keep talking about it like there's no other option. You should have multiple sides. It should be a circle. My goodness. but you have two sides who are no longer going to communicate, right? They're going to be so in opposition to each other, they won't even be willing to communicate on the same platform.
Yeah.
Um,
Why can't we just have one side? And like you're running as I'm the American that's gonna help you live your life better. I care about the American people. Why can't we run on that? Why can't you just be an American who is the best one for the job?
Right.
What's wrong with that? When you say that and then you bring up the whole third party and maybe there should be a third party and I'll be, oh, you're a socialist, oh, you're Nazi. I'm like, listen, dude. I just think like either we got one side or if we're going to do the party thing, I think there should be multiple parties, not just the two that keep bickering on who's right and who's wrong.
Right. Exactly.
Let's get as many ideas as possible in the pot and then come up with the best solution that way. That's
Joe,
what I
that
think.
makes too much sense.
Bro, like
it's
I'm trying to be
it's not divisive enough, right? It's not extreme enough. It's too reasonable. People don't like that. I've been listening to this audiobook that Marcy recommended. It's called I Think You're Wrong, But I'm Still Listening, or I Think You're Wrong, But I'm Listening. And it's a Republican and a Democrat. They're best friends, but they talk about these issues and they don't debate the issues. They just talk about them. They talk about what they learn. They do a lot of research. And one of the things they did on their podcast was they wanted to test how the presidential debate works, like how those debates actually function and operate, and what the purpose is behind them. So they followed the same rules and the same structure as the presidential debates. And what they actually found was they started disagreeing more. They started attacking each other more, and there became this like division between the two of them that wasn't there on the podcast before because they were following the format of the debates. And what the conclusion they came to was that these debates, these presidential debates, the vice presidential debates, the primaries, they are designed to create tension and division.
Yeah. Because you only get to talk for 2 minutes at a time.
Right. And the whole point of you talking is to prove the opponent wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And to prove yourself right. Your whole goal is to prove yourself right and to prove them wrong. All that does is create division. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was just really fascinating. Like those things, the media is designed that way too. I would not be surprised in the least if Fox News and CNN and MSNBC were all playing for the same team.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Right.
And I mean, in a way, they kind of are. I mean, they're playing
absolutely
the game of the top, 1%, as we like to call it. Mm-hmm. And the elite, which, you know what? Hey, how is that? How are they considered elite? Because they got a lot of money. Meet me in the street and see how elite you are, dude. I'll put my hands on you. Boom, boom, boom. I'll whoop your $1 billion ass. Like, you know what I mean? Like elite, dude. Come on, man. Like that just puts you on a pedestal. Like you're just a very successful individual. And you're the elite in the business world, but it's like you're still just a human being. And you shouldn't get to make decisions for the masses because you're in a position of power and like all of a sudden you're this all-knowing being. Like you're like the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain.
I was listening to Thomas Sowell. And he said one of the biggest flaws that presidents and people in authority, like one of the biggest mistakes they use is telling people to follow the experts, right? Like listen to the experts. If only we would listen to the experts. And he said, it's like, do you know how many atrocities and how many like disasters have occurred because we listened to the experts?
Oh yeah, a lot. I'm sure.
A lot.
Look at what's happened with COVID. I mean, these experts keep changing their mind like they do their underwear. Yeah. And dude, who knows anymore?
And one of his examples, and I'm paraphrasing this, and I'm going to get to the heart of the example rather than quote him directly. But he basically said, if you got all the professors of a Harvard Institute together into one room, like the brightest minds at Harvard, none of them, even with their collected intellect and knowledge, could build a car. Because
maybe not.
No single person has that kind of knowledge where they are such an expert that they can solve the world's problems by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And, his argument was, you're listening to engineers and scientists, but they're terrible philosophers. They're terrible policymakers. They're terrible. Like, they're good at this one thing. That does not make them an authority on anything else.
Yeah.
Just because you're a scientist, you're this brilliant scientist, does not mean you're a brilliant philosopher or like theologian or politician or whatever. Like, that was his argument. Like, you can't listen to the experts because even the experts don't always know what they're talking about.
Correct. Yeah, there's some things that are not easily measured with science.
Right.
That you have to think outside the box. And there's a lot of things that I've heard lately, like in academia and like in the science, especially in the science culture, is they don't accept new ideas very easily at all.
No,
like,
they don't.
You really, are going to spend a lifetime trying to prove something if it doesn't fall into what they think is, like, what would you say, like contemporary science, you know what I mean? What's the old philosophies. So that happens a lot. And that's where the mistake is, like, because people don't want to admit, oh, I was wrong. And here's this person that has a great idea and I don't want to look like a fool. So I don't want this information to get out to be correct. And which could actually, in return, in some cases, help a lot of people.
Yes,
it gets buried, and the people that had the idea or the philosophy get ridiculed, and it's really hard for new ideals to emerge. And that's the thing about politics in this country too, is like, you just, like with Biden getting elected, the old guard is staying yet again. Like, the old guard needs to go, and we need new, fresh ideas from people that are from this era and this generation.
Yes. Well, I think that's a part of it, but I also get afraid that even people from this generation will get so caught up in the Washington political culture that they'll end up just the same.
I know.
They'll start playing by the same rules. They'll start thinking the same way.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way it's done, right? That's just the way Washington works. Yeah.
And very well. And yeah, some of these younger people that are getting into politics are pretty radical. So I hope that the ones with common sense weed out the ones with just these crazy ideas that are just like from no life experience at all. Just it's Ivy League experience, speculation, right? And that's one thing when I was working in this factory is like, an engineer, not to say they're not smart people and they fix and they build stuff and all this stuff, but before they came up with the plan and the structure, density, and all this of what they're going to build, they made a lot of mistakes because it's experiment after experiment after experiment.
Absolutely.
They don't have a pure calculation that comes up with the right answer the first time, every time. So, it's like working with the engineers when I was at that factory. Some of the engineers come into the room what we're working on, and it's just like experiment after, we're going to try this. We're going to try this. And after like 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, you nail something like, oh, okay, this will work. Now this is the way we're going to build this from here on out. And then something new comes along and they have a problem down the road they never considered and wasn't a problem then, becomes a problem. So now they got to re-engineer something. They got to go back and re-engineer it and make it better. So when these experts, it's like, these are the people that study in these fields, but they don't have the right answer the first time. Like with the COVID thing, this was a new thing. And you got all these experts saying, a lot, like doctors, all these people online making their YouTube videos saying that they have the answer. And I'm like, stop. Yeah. Like, this is brand new. Like, I get what you're saying is can be logical, but until you put it to test and you really know that this is going to work, you can't just put that information out there on pure speculation.
Well, no,
like,
exactly.
Follow me.
And they do that with politicians too. It's like, well, 6 months ago you said this. It's like, yes, I did. And new information has come out and now I'm saying this. And so, and that's the thing is, like, in the world of politics, people can't handle people who change their minds because, forbid new information comes along and you actually change your mind because it's relevant.
I think that's a lot of people, though. A lot of people get stuck on, like, they're willing to die on that hill of ideas that they've always had. And it's like the one line that always kills me is people like, hey, man, like, I can raise my kids like this. Like, look, my parents raised me like that. Look how I turned out. I'm like, okay, even if you're doing really well, do you think your parents got it all right? Do you really think that they got everything right to where you don't need to change anything? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's just like an example for everything. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Generation to generation. Like, don't tell me that something from 50 years ago is as concrete as it was then now.
It's not. It's not. It's kind of going back to our last episode. Like advising people to go to college so you can get a good job, blah, blah, blah. 60 years ago, that was good advice, right? Go to college, get a degree, you'll get a job. Absolutely. I think it was Ravi Zacharias, one of my favorite teachers, the late Ravi Zacharias, said that he said back then, back in the 60s, let's say, you could work all summer and your earnings from that summer would pay for that coming year of school. And once you got that degree, if you didn't want a job, it's because or if you didn't have a job when you got that degree, it's because you didn't want one. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, that's not the case. You can get that degree. You cannot pay for that degree working all summer. Like, I don't care what job you're working. You're not earning $25,000 this summer, right?
You got a generous employer, man.
Yeah, exactly.
They just really want to help this college kid out, dude.
And in general, like, if you haven't found a job, it's not because you've done anything wrong. It's because jobs just aren't there, right? And so, advising people, just go to college, get a degree, get a job. Works for some people today, yes, like anything does. But it does not work as well as it did 60 years ago.
No.
It doesn't. Yeah. So.
Got the internet. We got a million ways to learn something now. And there's not one. Like, there's sometimes there's multiple ways to get the right answer. Sometimes there's a few different ways to build something and make it all it can look the same once it's finished, but there might be 2 or 3 different ways to do it.
Right. You
may have a way of doing it. Like cooking is a great example. Yeah. Like, there's so many different ways to cook, but everybody's cooking, but you have your way, you have your ethnic background, you put a flair with it, that wherever you're from, it's like, culturally, what you like, where you grew up, even if you're not from there, maybe you grew up there or you've been somewhere that influenced you.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's like, there's so many different ways to do certain things that anytime someone claims they have the ultimate answer, like, it's like, really? Do you?
Yeah.
Like, your way of doing it's the only way?
Well, yeah, I think you see a lot of that, and specifically from my experience, like parenting culture, like, well, this is the way you parent. This is the way you do it. This is the way you discipline. People seem to forget that one method of parenting doesn't apply to everybody. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not every other dad. Like, one method of parenting coming from that dad over there is going to look completely different coming out of me. Like, it just won't seem right. And every child is different. So, like, every parent is different. Every child is different. You put those two things together, what you end up with is an opportunity to learn how to parent that specific child, because they're different. And there's not just one blanket way to parent,
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, your kid, and not only that, like, generation to generation, there's different things going on in society. There's
absolutely
now with the internet and social media. I mean, parents now got to parent their kids, especially like your kids' age. It's a total different way of parenting now because of all the influence that is out there and how easy it is to access information.
Yep.
Your parenting skills are going to have to adapt to a way different style than like Marcy's parents with her, or our parents with us, or whatever it is. It's like generation to generation. There's going to be adjustments that have to be applied.
Yeah. I think also as people start researching how certain parenting techniques actually affect the children, right? You have to adapt. I think some of it's a little extreme, like you can't raise your voice at your children. That's nonsense. Sometimes you just gotta, yeah, exactly. You gotta scream at them, right?
I'm daddy.
Exactly. You gotta show some sense of authority, right? But people have to accept the fact that, like, just because you and your grandparents did it this way doesn't mean it was right? Like, that doesn't make it correct. Especially, again, going back to every child is a different child, and they're going to respond to different things. They're going to receive things differently than the other child will. Like you could yell at one child, they'll look right at you and just like, okay, you're yelling, big deal. And you could yell at another child and they totally break down into tears because they can't handle it. Like, they're different kids, and you got to pivot and change things up. But anyway, yeah, I think it's the same thing, like especially in politics. Like, from generation to generation, you have to step back and look at, okay, what world are we living in today, right? Well, how are things going to work today because the value of the dollar is different. The workplace looks different. People called it the gig economy when, the 2008 crash happened and people started doing like side gigs and stuff. That didn't go away. That's just normal life now. Right. And am I making any sense at all?
Yeah.
So, like, economically, like, things are different. They're not what they were back in 1990. Right. Somebody made a point that the 90s, like 1990 to 2000, or I would say maybe more like 91 to 99, was a very peaceful time for the United States. It was a very blissful time for the United States. The economy was doing great. People were just kind of like, the argument one guy made was like, people were just kind of bored in the United States because nothing was happening. Like, things were going so well that people didn't know what to do with themselves, right? And it was this like 9-year period. Then he cited a line from The Simpsons where somebody's driving up to what's the name of Mr. Burns' assistant?
Oh man, I watched Simpsons so long, dude. I know you're talking about that.
They drive up to him and he's like, can't anyone walk down the street without being offered a job? But that, like, that was his example of, like, that was the 90s, right? The 90s was good. And then everything, And
Y2K hit, man. Y2K it's all uphill from there, man. Like Y2K and then Twin Towers and all the hysteria began, man.
Yeah,
the war broke. I mean,
crash. Yeah.
Still in Afghanistan, and dude, the 2000s really jumped off like where we're at even now, like just up and down. Like, it's never really been the same since. In my opinion, I don't think it's ever really been the same since we got hit by the Twin Towers, or by them planes, Twin Towers. I think everything shifted in America. And
everything changed, yeah.
Then the internet really got strong and social media happened. And I think social media was like, it's almost like a final nail in the coffin. I mean, it almost seems like the social media movement, like, it's great because we can do this and stuff, but there's a very dark side to it, and it happening a lot with kids. It's really affecting kids, and it affects adults and the way we communicate, and just there's too much information being thrown at everybody at all times.
Right.
That,
and what's amazing is,
how can you process that in a positive way most of the time?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. It's too much all the time. You have to turn it off. And the other side of that is, most of the information isn't even relevant, right? Like, how is most of what I'm even seeing when I scroll through whatever social media platform, how is any of this even relevant to me? Like, who cares about most of it? Who
a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah, who honestly cares? I don't care what Josh Gad wants to say about President Trump. Like, who cares? The guy who does the voice of Olaf in Frozen, you know, like.
But if you was to receive the information that everybody eats up like candy now, right, on YouTube and all that, if they took that same headline and same information and gave it to you snail mail, put it in your mailbox as paper, you would probably put it right in the garbage.
Oh, absolutely.
But like, in the format that it's on,
yeah,
in the format that it's on, eat it up like it's the best meal ever. Just eat it up.
I've definitely, absolutely. I've even caught myself from time to time, like getting caught up in like the frenzy, you know, and getting worked up, and then I have to stop and be like, wait. This isn't me. Like, I don't get caught up in this stuff. What am I doing? You know? And it's almost like that's what it wants. Like, that's what social media wants, you know?
Dude, you gotta watch it. If you haven't already, you have to watch, and I'm not wanting to tell you what to do, but you have to watch The Social Dilemma, dude.
We started it. We didn't finish it, but we did get into it.
Gotta finish it, dude. It is. So there's something weird for me. And Olga said, you know, one day she's like, you know, if you didn't have Facebook, you'd probably be happier. She's just like kind of out of the blue one day. And I was like, I didn't really say anything about it. I just kind of thought about it for a couple weeks. And one day I just deleted Messenger, which is why I didn't get your one message on Messenger. I deleted the Messenger app and the Facebook app because Instagram I never really got on. I posted for my job stuff and a little bit on my regular Instagram page. But I deleted Facebook and Messenger. And I'll tell you, I look at everything else, like YouTube and all that, less now. In the last like month that I just got rid of one, because I looked at Facebook a lot. I'll admit I'm still one of the, I guess I'm one of the old people that's on Facebook now, but I've had it forever, you know? So it's like I had it when I was in my 20s. It's weird. So since I just deleted those two apps, Messenger and Facebook, I don't look at all the other social media as much all of a sudden. Like it's a weird correlation, but it's just that one thing. Like Facebook is so big that, and in the format that you can write all these long paragraphs, I think it really is the worst one.
I would agree. I think none of them are really, they can be good, but we have not used our powers for good, you know? We've used the power of social media for evil. And, you know, like when Facebook first started, it was fine. Like, it was kind of cute. It was like, yeah, I get to check in on my old friends, and you post like quizzes and people poked you, you know, you remember the poke option. And it was kind of cute. Yeah, it was cute. It was like, yeah, cool, Facebook, whatever. Now it's become this whole monster of a thing. And yeah, it's caused a lot of problems, but in a way that even like MySpace never did. MySpace never became a social problem. Like, it became a problem for like stalkers and stuff. I'll admit that.
Some weirdness, yeah.
But as far as like Twitter and social and other social media platforms have become these like behemoths, it never did. I suppose it's probably because of the format. I don't know, but yeah, I definitely have stopped. Honestly, most days I'll scroll through YouTube and I don't even click on anything because I just don't like. I'm like, I don't care. I'll give it a quick scroll, and then if I don't see anything, I'm like, all right, well, that was fun, and then I just put it away. Yeah.
Most of my YouTube algorithm that I have on me, I'd say probably 80% of my feed, that my automatic videos that's recommended to me is MMA, like UFC and Bellator mainly, and comedy. Some music, but I have the YouTube Red Music app. But on my actual just regular YouTube, that's all that really comes up, because I stopped watching all this other, like before the election, my feed was a lot of politics. So I started getting out of that a little bit. And I watch a lot of MMA news every day and comedy. So that's what most of my feed is, probably 80% of it. And a little bit of music, a little bit of politics. But yeah, everything else is just like these. I just, some of the some of the stuff that gains traction and become very popular on YouTube and TikTok is I watch it and I'm like, really? Like,
I know, man. I
really?
agree. Yep, I agree.
Like
For a long time, I was posting pretty regularly on Instagram, and I hit a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. I just didn't want to do it anymore because I don't want to feel like I have to keep up with all these other like photographers and videographers who are constantly posting these amazing photos. It's like, I went on this trip to Maui, and like, cool. I took this picture in the garage.
It's an old pair of shoes.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's just, it becomes this comparison culture, and you realize you kind of get sucked into the comparison game. And even on YouTube, like a lot of the filmmakers and stuff I really like to follow on YouTube, they've really just become like, check out this new piece of gear I got. And I just like, I don't care about that anymore. Like, awesome. Yeah. Create something of substance and maybe I'll watch. Right. You know, stop showing people your gear and all your cool stuff that you have. Like, I just don't care anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, the comparison thing gets tricky because it's hard sometimes when you're doing something and somebody else is doing the same thing or similar. It's in the same category and like they're doing it a certain way and it's working and you're still struggling or vice versa, whatever it is. It's hard not to start comparing yourself sometimes, but that's one thing I really try to not do is be like, oh man, like, if I did that, or what if how come I'm not getting there? I just am like, bruh, I'm gonna just do what I enjoy doing. This is one of the things, and it's like, if it works out, it works out. Great. But as long as I'm enjoying it along the way, then cool. Right. Whatever. Like, that's all I'm really into.
I agree.
Enjoying what I do.
Yep. Yeah, it's insane. Let me see what time we're at.
I think we're about good.
Oh, yeah, an hour. Definitely an hour. I could feel it happening too. I was like, we got to be getting close to an hour.
Feels like an hour, dude. I think an hour's good.
Yeah. Thank you for watching this episode of Same Mom, Different Dads. We're back on the politics train, but not, I guess, I don't know. It is what it is. I'm tired. But thank you for watching this episode, Joe. Do you have anything to say before we sign off?
Just keep it real. No, keep it real. Just, man, really do your own digging on information and just don't believe everything. Here's a good one. Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. Right?
Correct. I had a crazy idea.
What's that?
What if I'm not actually talking to you right now? I'm talking to such an advanced AI that it has taken on your likeness. Not a robot, but like a fake recording of Joe, like an AI deep fake version of my brother. And I don't even know it.
Could be. Like, man, I got you. You was talking to a fake person this whole time. Here I am, dude.
What if I'm really just talking to a program? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. How would you know?
Dude, I've thought sometimes, what if I wake up and my whole life, like none of it was real. It never really actually happened.
Well, you will. You're going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be completely different.
Well, I mean, like, if I woke up and like my name's not Joe and I never was with Olga and I never had a brother Gary and yeah, I'm some bum that lives on the streets.
Or you're a trillionaire, the world's first trillionaire.
Or I'm the world's first trillionaire.
Still sad because, you won't have Olga and,
Yeah, right. My life is not my life. What I thought it was. I wake up and it's something completely different. That would be, I've thought about that a lot. Like, what if I just one day, like, the reality that I was living in isn't actually my reality. It was just like a big dream. And I woke up or I was in a coma And I woke up and I'm in a hospital, strapped to the bed, like, what is going on?
And Olga's your nurse.
And I'm like telling everybody, I'm Joe. I'm not Frank. Who the hell is Frank? My name is Joe. And they're like, nah, bro, you're Frank.
Like, dude, Frank's really lost it, man.
Yeah, they're right. They're like, I don't know, this Frank guy, like, I don't think he's ever going to be the same. Like, something happened back home. And I'm like, I'm Joe. Oh, dude.
All right.
Nightmare.
Thank you for watching this episode. Tune in next time when we talk about what we would do if we went to space. I don't know. That'd be something. It'll be cool.
That'd be a cool topic. We'll do that next, maybe.
All right. Bye.
All right. See you.